Fani Willis sued over alleged communications with special counsel Jack Smith and the January 6th committee, and House Judiciary Committee threatens to hold District Attorney Fani Willis in contempt. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to UnwokeThoughts. You know, things are really stacking up for Fani Willis over there in Fulton County. Just yesterday, Judge McAfee ruled that he was going to throw out 6 of the 13 charges against Donald Trump. So that's almost half, and this effectively guts her case. He is set to rule over whether or not she will be disqualified from the case altogether. This will probably happen later this week. She has been sued by America First Legal after she refused to respond to an open records request, a FOIA request. She was subpoenaed by Jim Jordan over a whistleblower named Amanda Timpson, who claimed that her office was misappropriating a federal gang prevention grant to pay for swag, travel, and computers. And now she is being threatened with contempt unless she cooperates with the investigation into these allegations. But Representative Jim Jordan, he tweeted out this letter that was sent to the Fulton County DA's office, and he said, Georgians deserve to know where their federal tax dollars are going, but Fani Willis hasn't provided the documents we subpoenaed. Contempt is on the table. So it looks like Fani Willis, her whole strategy is just to ignore everything. She is probably under her bed right now in the fetal position, hoping this just all goes away. But I don't think it's going to go away. I mean, I think she really stepped in it, and now she is finding out. But this letter is addressed to the Honorable Fani T. Willis, and it reads, Dear Miss Willis, the Committee on the Judiciary is continuing its oversight of the Fulton County District Attorney's Office receipt and use of federal grant funds issued by the U.S. Department of Justice. On February the 2nd, 2024, after several attempts to obtain your voluntary compliance with our oversight, the committee issued a subpoena to you. The subpoena compelled the production of 2 specific categories of documents. Number 1, documents and communications referring or relating to the FCDAO's receipt and use of federal funds. And number 2, documents and communications referring or relating to any allegations of the misuse of federal funds by the FCDAO. On February the 23rd, 2024, you responded to the committee's subpoena with a letter in which you smeared a former employee of yours who spoke out. This former employee is Amanda Timpson. She's this whistleblower who recorded a conversation between herself and Fani Willis where she made these allegations to Fani Willis, and Fani Willis just kind of brushed them off. And not long after that, she was fired, and she was escorted out of the building. I believe it was like 4 or 5 armed guards. And apparently this Amanda Timpson woman, she's kind of a smaller woman. And she was escorted out by these really big dudes. So they were very scared of Amanda Timpson. Apparently she, what does she know, like jiu-jitsu or something? She's a ninja. I don't know. But they needed all those guards to escort her out of the building. But you smeared a former employee of yours who spoke out about your misuse of federal grant funds. We will not dignify your attacks on this brave whistleblower or your continued attempts to distract from your conduct through misdirection and personal insults. The allegations in the public realm about your misuse of federal grant funding are concerning, and the committee has an obligation to examine them. We appreciate that you have produced a narrow set of documents in response to the subpoena, but your compliance with the subpoena to date is deficient. Attached to your letter were various documents, a number of which were previously produced to the committee, that contained, among other things, 15 award letters from the Department of Justice's Office of Justice Programs and Office of Violence Against Women, and approximately 27 screenshots of expense budget summaries available to the FCDAO. However, you failed to produce any of the following categories of documents. So apparently she sent some documents that really weren't relevant to the Judiciary Committee, to Jim Jordan. Some of them they already had, but she failed to produce, these right here in this bulleted list. And it says, all documents and communications referring or relating to any allegations of the misuse of federal funds by the FCDAO. All documents and communications between or among your office and the Justice Department, including its OJP and OVW components. All communications between FCDAO employees about the receipt or use of federal grants. All documents that fall within the scope of the subpoena, such as the FCDAO's applications, proposal, abstracts, grant agreements, financial management and system of internal controls questionnaire, and consolidated budget summary documents. So all this stuff seems like it's pretty comprehensive. And Fani Willis, she's like, whoa, I don't want to send him that stuff. But all documents and communications relating to the FCDAO's grant performance measurement and progress reporting information. So these are the things that Fani Willis has not yet sent the House Judiciary Committee and Jim Jordan. She's holding back on us. What's going on here? Jim Jordan's like, listen, no, we have the authority to request this stuff because some serious allegations have been made by Amanda Timpson. And not only that, but she has the recording when she talked to you. So show us these documents, Fani. Come on. And the letter goes on. Although additional materials are likely also responsive to the committee's subpoena, as an accommodation, we will prioritize the production of the documents and communications identified above. Your letter also requests that the committee engage with the Justice Department to obtain responsive documents that the FCDAO should have in its possession. So Fani Willis was like, I don't want to do all this work, finding all these documents, basically digging my own grave. Listen, if you want these documents, go to the Justice Department and see if they'll provide them to you. But, Fani, you're the one that had these allegations against you. She doesn't want to do any of this work. She's basically passing the buck. As part of our oversight, the committee has engaged with the Justice Department about its administration of federal grant programs. The committee's separate requests to the Justice Department do not alleviate your legal obligation to comply with the subpoena. So, even though they can go to the Justice Department, she still is legally obligated to produce these documents. And, she is, the DA of Fulton County. She is the top dog, so she doesn't think that she really has to. Fani Willis, she operates, in her mind at least, on a different level. She's above the law. She is big bad Fani Willis, and anyone that tries to question her, she just will stonewall, and she will act like they don't even exist. In addition, in your letter, you noted a preliminary object to the committee's subpoena on the grounds that the subpoena is overbroad and unduly burdensome under any ordinary meaning of those terms. So she's whining about the fact that she has to do all this work and dig up all these documents that show all this stuff and all of this corruption that she has let continue in the Fulton County DA's office. She's saying, this is overly burdensome. Why should I have to produce all these things? It's not fair. But Jim Jordan, he says, to the contrary, the committee has exercised its authority with restraint. The subpoena seeks only 2 categories of documents in the scope of its request, covers only a limited time period, namely from January 1st, 2020 to present. In addition, as discussed above, the committee is prioritizing certain categories of documents as an accommodation. While you have indicated that additional documents may be forthcoming in response to the committee's subpoena, the committee has yet to receive any additional responsive materials in the 3 weeks since your initial response. So she sent these documents, some of these documents, and she responded to this request, and she said that, we might give you some additional documents, later on. So she probably, hoped that they would just forget about this. Fani Willis, she's got, her plate is full right now. She's facing a disqualification. She's facing lawsuits. She's facing the subpoena from the House Judiciary Committee. And apparently she's just kind of overwhelmed. Either that or she just doesn't want, the House Judiciary Committee to see what are in these documents. And she just was hoping that it just goes away. But accordingly, the committee expects that you will produce all responsive documents to the subpoena in the categories prioritized by the committee no later than 12 p.m. on March 28th, 2024. If you fail to do so, the committee will consider taking further action, such as invocation of contempt of Congress proceedings. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Jim Jordan, Chairman. So, wow, Jim Jordan. Strong language for Fani Willis. He is threatening to hold her in contempt of Congress. And Fani Willis, she is probably scrambling to figure out what to do with all of these lawsuits against her, all these investigations against her. And I guess we'll see what comes of this. But the latest lawsuit to come out against Fani Willis is this one by Judicial Watch. And it says, Fani Willis sued over alleged communications with special counsel Jack Smith and January 6th committee. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is violating Georgia open records law by refusing to turn over documents related to her communications with special counsel Jack Smith and the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, a lawsuit alleges. In the 16-page filing, conservative government accountability group Judicial Watch accuses Willis and broader Fulton County of making likely false representations about the retention of such documents. Fani Willis and Fulton County seem to have provided false information about having no records of communications with Jack Smith and the Pelosi January 6th committee. Judicial Watch President Tom Fenton said in a Wednesday press release announcing the lawsuit. On August 22nd, 2023, the watchdog group filed an open records request for all documents and communications sent to, received from, or relating to Smith, any employees in his office, and the House committee investigating the pro-Donald Trump riots at the U.S. Capitol. After the request was acknowledged, Fulton County sent a reply stating they do not have the responsive records, the lawsuit says. And guys, I have a copy of the letter that Fulton County sent America First Legal when they made an open records request to Fulton County. And I'm assuming Judicial Watch got a similar letter. But this letter says, the Office of the Fulton County District Attorney does not maintain records responsive to your request. At this time, there are no records that are responsive to this open records request. So I'm assuming that this is similar to what Judicial Watch got, because this is a very similar case because they both made open records requests. But this article continues. On March 5th, the right-wing watchdog group filed a lawsuit in Fulton County Superior Court alleging later in time information shows such records, at least to a limited extent, are in Fulton County's possession. Willis has previously communicated with then January 6th committee chair Representative Benny Thompson in at least one letter, the lawsuit notes. In December 2021, Willis sent Thompson, as head of the committee, a letter about her then nascent racketeering and election subversion investigation into the 45th president and others. And this is the letter, or at least part of the letter, that she sent. It says, as you may be aware, I am conducting a criminal investigation of possible attempts to illegally interfere with the administration of Georgia's 2020 general election. Through news reports, we are aware that your committee has interviewed some witnesses relevant to our investigation. We understand from the same reports that your committee's investigators may have collected records relevant to our investigation. Please accept this letter as an official request from me for access to records that may be relevant to our criminal investigation. Those records include, but are not limited to, recordings and transcripts of witness interviews and depositions, electronic and print records of communications, and records of travel. It may well be most efficient for your staff and effective for our understanding for my staff and me to meet with your investigators in person. We are able to travel to Washington anytime between January the 31st, 2022 and February 25th, 2022. We will do our best to accommodate the schedule of the committee. That was the letter that was sent to Thompson. And they never produced this letter, apparently. You know, this just one letter, but if there's this one letter and they're not, giving it to Judicial Watch as part of this open records request, what else is there, I wonder? What other kind of communications was Fani Willis and her DA's office having with Jack Smith and the J6 committee? I wonder. Probably a lot. The Willis letter to Thompson was flagged late last year by Republicans House Judiciary Committee Chair Representative Jim Jordan. There he is again, guys. Judicial Watch says the existence of the letter shows Willis and Fulton County failed to comply with the open records request. Willis' letter to Chairman Thompson is plainly responsive to the request, yet it was neither produced to the plaintiff in response to the request nor claimed to be subject to exemption from production under the open records request, the lawsuit reads. Citing a political report, the lawsuit also alleges that some members of Willis's staff traveled to Washington, D.C. to confer with the House January 6th committee in April, May, and November. Wow. They were like best buds. They were friends. They probably flew up there, having parties with the J6 committee, hanging out, telling crazy stories, anything that they could think of in their imaginations about Donald Trump. But, quote, such meetings plainly had to be coordinated and likely generated communications, if not other records, about or memorializing these meetings, the lawsuit goes on. Any such records also would be responsive to plaintiff's request. Accordingly, despite its representation to plaintiff that it possessed no records responsive to the request, on information and belief, the county and Willis possess such records but have failed to produce them. At no point did defendants represent to plaintiff that any records it possessed were exempt from production under the open records request. So they didn't produce any records. and they didn't say that any records were exempt. So what gives, Fani Willis? What's going on? The lawsuit seeks production of the disputed documents, a declaration that Willis and Fulton County violated the law, an injunction to stop withholding such documents, and attorney's fees. Law and Crime reached out to Willis for comment on this story, but no response was immediately forthcoming at time of publication. So this lawsuit is very similar to the AFL lawsuit against Fani Willis. They made a request for records, which is, open records request. FOIA, that's the law. They're supposed to produce public records. And instead, they responded by saying, what are you talking about? What records? We don't have any records. And slowly but surely, some communications, some records are coming out into the open. And America First Legal, Judicial Watch is suing Fani Willis over this because she's just not producing anything. She thinks she's above the law. Either that or her hands are just way too full and she can't comply with this stuff. I think it's probably a little bit of both. I don't think she wants to comply. I think she just feels that she's overwhelmed right now. This poor lady, man, she just has so much on her plate right now. And then she just got that huge ruling against her by Judge McAfee where he threw out 6 of her counts. She has all these lawsuits and she still has to keep Nathan Wade happy. That must be a really hard thing to do. But what do you guys think about this? What do you think about her possibly being held in contempt of Congress? What do you think about these lawsuits against her? Do you think anything will happen? Who knows? But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.